Can you explain what you actually do? Because I know you're in charge of the WCA somehow, but what does that mean?
Yes, I'm in a lot of meetings every day. Part of it is I execute the strategic vision. One good thing about what I do is I can actually spend time doing things that a normal volunteer of 5 to 8 hours a week cannot do, or the board member who's on a team of 5 cannot do.
What sort of things do you want to see happen to make competitions inviting?
One thing I found out from being a delegate and organizer here is that there's people that just want to hang out and they don't want to necessarily compete. They want to get together and they just want to have fun. They want to maybe do some solves. If they're official, fine. If they're not official, who cares?
Committees are doing things and they all need to talk to each other, and I show up and I'm like, well, can we do something?
I always have the now what mentality of, thanks for this long report that you just gave me. Now what?
Well, to jump in,
Okay.
can you
Yeah, let's do that.
explain what you actually do? Like, really specifically, because I know you're in charge of the WCA somehow, but what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
do you send emails? Do you sit in meetings?
Yeah.
Do you, like, watch results? Like, who do you talk to? What happens
Oh.
because of you? What doesn't happen because of you?
Well, first of all, I have a card that has, my name and number. So it said, like, I wake up and go, am I actually doing my dream job? Yes. Yes, I'm in a lot of meetings every day. I talk to a lot of people every single day. I could sort of break things down, and I'm not going to give you a political answer, but part of it is I execute the strategic vision. What the heck does that mean? I'm trying to improve competition quality, building partnerships, creating sponsorships, fundraising. So we need to increase funding in the WCA. Most of our money comes in through registration fees. There's some that comes in from sponsorships. I'm trying to build those relationships so we increase funding. I handle a lot of projects. So one good thing about what I do is I can actually spend time doing things that a normal volunteer of 5 to 8 hours a week cannot do, or the board member who's on a team of 5 cannot do. So I can just deep dive. I'm doing some conflict resolution with an entire country right now, an entire very populous country. I won't deep dive because I don't want to call anybody out. But I'm just in a ton of meetings with them, trying to understand their situations, why this person has an issue with this person, how can we resolve that. So projects like sport organization, competitor safety, we're trying to increase competitor safety so we don't have those stupid little issues of the occasional grooming or assault or something like that.
Yes.
We're also trying to increase delegate training through something called the learning management system. That's a generic term that's throughout the entire industry, but that's what we call ours, the LMS. And we're trying to, we're getting ready to publish a system of trainee to junior delegates. So to become a junior delegate, you have to actually pass a course and get certified. And then all delegates will have to be trained. So I'm in a lot of projects. I also oversee all 800 plus delegates and volunteers. There's 700 and some delegates around the world. That includes the trainees. And in 115 to 130 countries, something like that. And then there's about 160 to 170 volunteers on all the committees. So I oversee everybody. Everybody reports to me, and I report to the board. I'm trying to bring in more funding. That's kind of a big thing. That's just something volunteers couldn't do, so I'm out knocking on doors, trying to build those long-term partnerships. For example, we had Rubik's as a sponsor for Worlds. We don't want sponsors just for one competition. We want sponsors to sponsor the WCA or the website or something else. Anything that takes a lot of volunteer time, I dive in. That could be some mundane stuff like paying bills. For example, I had to research buying plane tickets and getting an Airbnb for somebody, and that took a lot of time. I could dedicate that as part of my workday, while volunteers that would just sort of kill their week. And then I just kind of meet with a lot of people. I have open office hours monthly. for the volunteers. So all of those 800 volunteers. I would love to have a public-facing open office hours at some point. I don't know what that would look like, but I just make myself available once a month, the second Wednesday, at a time friendly for that region of the world. It's either Europe or Africa is next week, and then the month after will be Oceania and Asia, and then the month after that it'll be North America and South America. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of meetings, a lot of talking to people. That's why I tend to lose my voice and have a lot of coffee.
Right.
So that's kind of what I do for the WCA.
Okay,
That's a long
so
answer, but
tons of miscellaneous jobs, all to better the WCA. Why should we be excited that you're the one doing it? There are a lot of people who have invested like a lifetime into getting good at speed cubing, and you are not a world-class cuber or close to it. However, the things you're doing aren't like world-class cubing related. So it's like, why should we as cubers be excited that Dan is the one doing all this stuff? Like, pitch yourself, sell yourself. That's what you do. Why should we be excited that that's what you do?
Okay, so first of all, I have seen the WCA from virtually every side possible. I'm a delegate. I have had 60 plus delegated competitions. I've organized 60 plus competitions. And that's from finding venues to working with volunteers to creating schedules, delegating from training other delegates, that kind of thing. And hiring and firing delegates. I've had to demote a couple, and it's heartbreaking. I've been the treasurer of the WCA for a bit, so I have that experience. I have some financial background. Part of my MBA, I have an international finance minor as part of my MBA. I was a board member as well, so I have seen from the bottom to the top. Not just a board member, but I was also a senior member of the Quality Assurance Committee, and was just recently the leader for a couple of weeks. Also, probably most importantly, I am a competitive speed cuber. Now, I am not world class, but I have 7 podiums, 1 gold. I actually have 1 first place medal in multi-blind. And that was a state record. So when somebody says you're not competitive, I sort of take offense to that. I should have been preparing for your podcast. What I was doing at lunch today was I was doing a multi-blind attempt.
Nice.
So you would think, you should have been preparing, and I'm thinking, I've got to prepare for my 3-day competition this weekend, and I have multi-blind on Friday. I'm trying to get my state record back. Also, I've built a region. So being here in Kansas back after COVID, there was nobody around for about 400 miles. So I've just kind of built up a team. We have a team of probably half a dozen organizers, 8 or 9 delegates, several states. We have competitions every month. So I've kind of built that region. So am I the best person, most qualified? You might be able to find some more qualified folks out there. But as far as energy that I'm going to get to the WCA each and every day, I wake up and want to make the WCA better. I've seen the WCA from top to bottom. There's only a few people that can state that. I have the chops, the education, the professional background to say I can do this. And I love talking to people. I really do. I really love talking to people. I love meeting. And if you talk to volunteers, they just sort of hate meetings. I'm going, let's get in a meeting and discuss this. We did hire somebody. You might have known about this. We did hire somebody first before me. And we went through 195 applications through 2 cycles. We hired a guy that was the best of those 195. And then he found his perfect job. Again, no fault to him. I love him, and I still talk to him. He's a super nice guy. I wish him the best. I didn't necessarily want this job in the beginning, but and some folks said, why don't you apply? And I go, I'm trying to find the best person. Well, we found the best person, and it turned out to be someone who didn't have speed cubing chops. Nothing against them. It's tough to find somebody who has speed cubing chops and have this kind of background. And then when Ryan took his other job, his perfect job, and we kind of had this vacuum that we needed to fill. I said, I'm going to put my hand up. I'm going to put my resume, put my name in a hat, and let you guys decide. And it's an honor to have been picked. So the board decided a little bit that I had the chops to do this, but I've kind of done everything from top to bottom inside the WCA.
Mm-hmm. I think a good question for now is, who is the board and how did they get to where they are? Because it sounds like that's a really important piece of what you do, because you report to the board. And I've been around enough nonprofits to know that like the board becomes like this scary evil guy in the corner where like anything bad that happens, it's like, oh, the board did this. Like I've been around universities that have a board where they're making these decisions. I've been around like religious, charity, funding, international relief nonprofits. It's the same thing every time. Like, oh, the board is evil. For the WCA specifically, for the people on the board, where did they come from? How did they get onto the board? How did you get onto the board? What do they do that you do not do, and vice versa?
Let's see if I can remember all those questions. You might have to ask a few of them again.
You're good. What does the board do that you don't do, and how did they get where they
are? What does the board do that I don't do? Okay. So they create the strategic vision, and I execute the strategic vision. But I also create the strategic vision I talk to the board each and every day. For the layman, I sort of say we're all the executives. They vote on stuff. I don't vote. I consult, and then I go execute it.
Okay.
That's sort of your first grader reader part of that. So the board is 5 members. It could be more, it could be less at times, but they try to keep it at 5. Every one of the board members comes from a WCA background. So we have the chair, Abdullah. He prides himself on his national records. He has 67 national records, and he has built up Speed Cubing communities in Canada and Pakistan, and he's in Pakistan now. Working with the Pakistani government on some recognition there. And then he was also a senior member on WIC, the Integrity Committee. We have another member, Hex, who is a senior member on the Regulations Committee. So he helped build the regulations. He was around for the 24 and 25 regulation cycle, and then assisted the board on WHEAT, the executive assistants. So everything the board did, we would assign tasks to them, the sort of the day-to-day, mundane, tedious type stuff. They would go and do it. We have Glib, who is very, very active, understanding the Eastern Europe and Russia side and the Ukrainian side. So anytime that comes up, he's deep diving on that. And he was also a senior member on WIC. Turns out that you cannot be on the board and the senior member of WIC at the same time. So yeah, he had to resign from WIC, just as Abdullah did. Then we have Ruben, who is the head of the major championships team, and he's probably our passionate member. He just has this. He just wears his heart on his sleeve. Yeah. He's the head of the major championships team. So whenever you see a major championship, how well that's executed, Ruben's handprints and fingerprints are all over that. And then our last and certainly not least, Sachin Arvind from India. He's a senior delegate of India. He's getting ready to step down from that position and has applied to start the RO. India being the largest democracy and the most populous country in the world. That is a very, very important part of the WCA. So these are 5 people with a lot of great experience. And they all have many, many years going. They have early WCA IDs. I think Abdullah is 2011, something like that. So they've been around for a long time. And so what do they do? What don't so we kind of all work together. In this new executive director position, I tend to do most of the day-to-day stuff. They sort of dive in on things that interest them. or things that they have some expertise in. Anything with process or documentation, Hex is all over that, and we love him for that. So being part of regulations and wheat, he's great at that. He can research. If something's in a bylaw somewhere, he'll find it. But generally, I will do most of the day-to-day stuff because I have 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week of bandwidth.
Right.
Yeah. So that's who the board is. And being on the board, I can sort of advise them on how previous boards acted, previous board members, and what they're still fairly new at this. So I say, well, in 25 we did like this, and another board member did it like that. I recommend we do it like this. They can certainly do their own thing. Mm-hmm. The great thing is I sort of have the freedom to do what I want to do without sort of interacting with them too much. They tend, when they want to do something, they kind of have to interact together, right? I lovingly call the board the five-headed monster, that they sort of have to agree on things and speak with one voice. That's why you don't see a lot of the board giving interviews one by one.
I think a general sentiment among people in the community is that the WCA moves very slowly. So if you take a specific thing that a cuber is passionate about, like 4-pad and sliding, or some regulations decision around a major event, or maybe adding FTO, or something like suddenly removing clock, it's like there's like you could name anything that the WCA has done over the last 8 years or more, and a lot of people are like, the WCA doesn't change, the WCA doesn't listen. Can you speak to kind of like some of why maybe there is a lack of speed, if that's changing, if that's structural, and just kind of that topic?
Yeah, so up until March 5th of 2026, everybody outside of the software team, everybody was a volunteer. So everybody's giving 5 to 8 to 10 hours a week. And then you get into that five-headed monster thing that I just talked about. It's something comes into the board that it's not black or white. It's the team can't decide on what to do, so they send it up. We're trying to figure out how to, I don't want to call out anything specific, but I remember a case from WIC where they weren't sure on the team what to do, so they sent it up to the board. What do you think we should do? Well, we're not experts, and we'll probably have to get legal counsel, and so we got to schedule an appointment, and then they've got to go research it and then get back with us, and then we have to agree on the response to that. That takes weeks, if not longer. So that sort of changed when I was hired, and now I could sort of take things and what may have taken days, weeks, a month, and then coming to an agreement on the board, I can do in just a couple of days, just because I could just do it. I could just go do it. I know generally what they're thinking about. If I have a question, I can sort of ask them, but having been on the board, knowing them personally, I kind of know what they're thinking. What did I ask them to? Oh, yeah, we want to create a leader position for one of the teams that now reports to the board. And I said, here's what I want to do. Does anybody have any objections to that? So the question is, why did things take so long? That's why. Everybody's a volunteer. But we are moving forward. And if we bring in more funding and get more sponsorships, we can hire more people and things can go faster.
Well, it sounds like not only is the problem everyone's a volunteer, it also sounds like there's not a clear executive who can make a unilateral decision. Like if every layer of the organization requires agreement by committee, that makes everything slow, like you said. Like this committee finally gets together to talk about some issue. They can't quite agree. They kick it to the board. The board has to get together. They can't quite agree. It goes around and around. They finally agree. They send it back down to the other committee, who then finally gets to meet together, and then they finally execute on it. And so it sounds like what you're saying is there are a lot of things where, because I know how the board thinks, and I know all these people, and I'm not afraid to jump in meetings for 8 hours a day, I can shrink the time from this group can't decide to like indecision, let me help. Board has a thing, let me just go do it.
Let me help.
So that, in theory, that will help.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it sounds like you've done some committee work, but yeah, you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. Let me just point out 4 committees that I know do this: integrity, quality, competition announcement, and regulations. Results too, so that's 5, and there's others as well. When something comes in, they assign a case lead. In general, somebody who's in charge of just like the project manager for that. They research it, they ask questions, there's emails that go back and forth. There's that too. If something happened at a competition, they have to email the competitor, which could take days, and then there's follow-up questions. Let's say they've gotten all that together, then there has to be a vote. There's not one person that just says, we're going to punish that person or let them off with probation, that kind of thing. It has to go to a vote. And if it's kind of a close vote, they may discuss again.
Right.
Here's another problem, though. What if that team needs to talk to another team? I know quality and integrity, their stuff tends to overlap a lot because they're not sure if it's a competition quality issue or a delegate integrity issue. So they have to go back and forth before that's even decided. And then maybe parts of that are on both committees. So that's kind of one thing that I'm working on, is like making sure that if things are split, making sure they split and then get back together quickly. But yes, voting takes, it could take a couple of months for even some simple cases that are not I've seen cases take less than 2 weeks when something happened, the evidence was clear, and they admitted to it, and the voting went quick. That could take less than 2 weeks. But if something requires a lot of back and forth and there's voting, that could take several months, and it's very frustrating. Yes. Hopefully we could change that down the road.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're doing the first logical step to start improving that. Okay, so I could ask some questions about specific decisions or things that have happened or are happening. I could ask questions about like future and where you want to see the WCA go. Do you have a preference as to where we go next?
Yeah. Dealer's choice. You decide.
All right. Cool. So let me just drill down into something you've said. With Dylan and Chris, when you did the tent interview, you were like, I'm working on getting funding and working on getting sponsorships. And you referenced that again earlier when you were like, something specific I'm doing. What are funders or sponsors buying? Are they buying ad space at an event? Are they buying ad space on a website? Like, what's the pitch to an outside source of capital? Are you saying you get a place to stick your brand? Are you like, help me understand, like, we need funding as a community. What are we offering to people such that they would give you capital?
Yeah. So let's take a couple of things. Because it could be a number of things. The simplest one that we've dealt with is sponsoring a major event. So if we ask, and we've had a long-term sponsorship with Rubik's that is unfortunately ending at the end of this year, so we're looking for new major sponsors, and that'll probably be a multi-year campaign. And so we asked them to fund the competition, and then what do they want in response to that? So it could be they want a booth, they want us to put some branding behind there, they want some ad space on stream, interviews, they want people to come in and give speeches, that kind of thing. And it's about ROI. It's about return on investment. If they give us that money, are they going to get that money back? Another thing could be funding the WCA through partnerships. If somebody wanted to perhaps give us some services or equipment, let's just say Amazon, for example. Okay, we don't have anything going on with Amazon right now, but let's just say we wanted Amazon to fund, to be a partner with the WCA, to give us our AWS site for free. Okay, What would that look like to them? Well, we could put them on our website. We could give them discounts at competitions. We could say, create a partnership where Cubers' dads, go work for Amazon, that kind of thing. It's just about of what they want. Another thing could be if we wanted to create one thing I'm talking about is like a Hall of Fame. I want to do a Speed Cubers Hall of Fame. I'd like to sell naming rights to that. So let's just pick on Microsoft, whatever, Coca-Cola, Red Bull, anybody. What would that look like to the WCA, and what would they want in return? That kind of thing. So it's just different sponsors ask different things. It's more like you ask them the question, you you just sort of say, we'd like you to do this, and ask them what they would like in return. And it could be multi-year, that kind of thing. So different sponsors ask for different things. And one of the things I do is I just reach out and build long-term relationships. There's cubing stores. I'm pretty open about talking to SpeedStacks and other cubing stores regularly. And a lot of times I just check in. And I play the long game. I build the relationships. I ask them how their weekend was. Can we do a competition together? And we start small. And then at the end, hey, would you like to sponsor the World Championship? And that makes that a lot easier than going in cold with a pitch deck, and then you just don't know. I think those long-term relationships are make for better results.
Okay, so this. Forgive me if this is the autism talking. I'm trying to think concretely. Like in terms of the products that you're offering, like advertising products that you're offering to a partner. Under the major championship bucket, you have title sponsor, which is presented by such and such, and then the branding goes on promotional products you give to the competitors. It goes on the equipment that happens in the venue, goes on the branding and everything like that. You have booths or promotional space within a major championship, and then you have ad space on a live stream, which is like transition graphics as well as like mid-rolls or something like that. And then you also mentioned interviews and speeches. So the major championship has like an established variety of products that you can offer. The one new one that you mentioned is the Hall of Fame, which that's a phenomenal product where you can create this thing and then offer a title sponsorship there. Are there other like specific products that you're trying to seek, like trying to create so that you have more things to offer to a partner, or is the primary thing we need somebody else to fill this major championship bucket? Like, is the goal grow where people can give money to cubing, or is the goal find somebody to give more money to what we're already doing? If you need anything speedcubing related, I highly recommend checking out thecubicle.com. They have been the premier speedcubing store for most of the lifetime of speedcubing. I'm sponsored by The Cubicle. If you want to shop there, please use code TRUE, T-R-U-E, at checkout for 5% off your entire order. That's code TRUE, T-R-U-E.
It's about just having those open conversations and see where it leads. Another thing that is more of a long-term thing is we're trying to grow the number of new competitors. Our new competitor percentage has dropped since 2024 by about 25%. We're trying to grow that. So we'd like to look for sponsors that could help us do that. One model could be that they would give us a pot of money, and then we would sort of incentivize competitions and organizers to create programs to bring in more new competitors, doing advertising through schools or Instagram or whatever. We could fund that, help them maybe build social media or graphics, and then if they hit their goal, then part of that money would flow down to them. So that's another opportunity, and we could say, what would you like in return for that? Let's just say Rubik's again, because Rubik's is an entry-level product. So they would probably want they probably like it that we have more new competitors as opposed to the returning competitors. So you could go to Rubik's and say, and this is not something that's in the works, but it's something that I'm just kind of giving an example. Rubik's, would you mind funding a pot of money that we can help incentivize? And then from that, we can then say, for those that have met those goals, we can give them certain criteria, like Rubik's branded products. And in return, Rubik's would they provide some merchandise discount, that kind of thing. So there's a number of things, but it's about how to bring those folks to the table and what do they expect in return. Here's another one. GAN is big on smart cubes. Okay. WCA does not allow smart cubes. How do we create a partnership with GAN that doesn't allow, where we don't have smart cubes and they want smart cubes? Could we create something where we have sort of a side event where we sort of show off the new smart cubes? And I don't know if you've seen the GAN speed cubing, the GSL or something like that, where they have speed cubing in the smart cube displays in the back. Those are amazing. Could we have those at a major championship? I'm sure GAN would probably be more open to sponsorship, but we'd say, how about we have smart cubes at competitions? Does that open up the pathway to smart cubes at competitions down the road? Maybe, I don't know. Is there an advantage to me, 25-second solver, having a smart cube at a competition? Is that cheating? Or is it more for those folks that are in the 4, 5, 6 second range, your top cubers, as they say, sub 8, sub 7? We say you can't have a smart cube, but others can. I'm just sort of throwing it out. But yeah, that's a way to bring folks to the table, just sort of exploring how they could enter speed cubing competitions and the environment. And it's not just about the competitions, it's about the kids. I mean, our demographic is 12 to 16-year-olds normally. There's not a lot of 58-year-old folks out there.
Okay, let's double click on this. Let's dig into that. Over the last few months, there's other people and organizations like PSL. There's this clock decision, which created a bunch of people getting really heated and trying to figure out what happened and why. And there's kind of this idea where there's camps in cubing. There's a camp of people that really wants cubing to become a sport. They want legitimacy. They want broadcasts. They want, ranked leaderboards. They want teams and formats that are, and they want spectator friendliness and eliteness and legitimacy. And then there's a community of people who's dude, it's a chill for kids grassroots thing. It's fine. Keep it a fun kids thing that some people take seriously. And then there's a group that's kind of grassroots is great, but we should be bringing more adults in. We should not be a kids thing. We should be an everyone thing. Talking about strategic vision, are you guys as an organization leaning one of those particular directions? Are you just kind of, let's do all of it? You mentioned growing the new competitor percentage. Where is your head? Where's the board's head at on which of those directions you're trying to optimize for?
How about if I said all of them? Okay. So from growing the sport, putting on my strategic vision hat, I want to grow the sport. So that's about bringing in more money to the top competitions. Okay. So does GAN or Microsoft or Amazon, do they care about my 40-person competition in Kansas here in a couple of weeks? No. Do I care personally as a competitive speed cuber about that 40-person competition? You're dang right, I do. And I'm trying to be in the finals in something. So 95, 99, 98% of all competitions are going to be their local grassroots competitions, which have less than 100 competitors, which are super chill one-day events. You kind of go in, You meet your friends, you hang out, and you help out and judge, you organize, and then you go out to lunch and you go out to dinner or whatever after, and it's super chill. Hey, did you get your PRs? Did your PR streak continue? Everybody loves that. But me as the executive director, I'm trying to grow the sport, trying to bring in more money. So I'm actually thinking about both sides. How do I improve the quality of those competitions? I have talked a lot about the big competitions. As far as the grassroots competitions, one issue we're seeing is a lot of spammy, gimmicky competitions. This has gotten better over the years, but we're trying to remove the stuff. Competition on a train, competition at the top of a mountain, competition on a boat, competition in McDonald's. The southernmost solve in WCA history. Anything gimmicky, we want to try to remove that, but still make it fun. We want to have less small competition and more larger competitions that are more inviting, that kind of thing. So we're trying to improve quality. So there's some delegate training there and organizer training and talking to different regions, because that means different things to different people at different times. So yeah, I'm actually thinking about both of those. Like I said, I'm a competitive speed cuber as well. So when I'm done here, I'm actually leaving this podcast to go to a local meetup, and I'm meeting with kids and parents and talking about our local state championship here in a couple weeks. So I'm actually changing hats from trying to bring in more money to how can we make Kansas a little better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So to my ears, it more sounds like you just said we want to grow the grassroots community. Like, everything you just said is fantastic, but none of it touches major championships, and none of it touches like invitationals, top cuber leaderboards, new competitive formats, that sort of thing. So like, is what you're saying, I care about both, and I think the way to do it is start with grassroots and go from there? Or am I just using the wrong language?
I don't want to say you're using the wrong language, but I'm actually trying to split those efforts. I feel that the way to improve local competitions is different from the way to bring in more funding and get those invitationals, to get more spectator friendliness, to bring in sponsorship funding for the major championships. Those are two very different strategic visions, and I'm trying to execute both of them.
Mm-hmm. I see. You used the word inviting a second ago. What does that mean to you? And what sort of things do you want to see happen to make competitions inviting?
Yeah, so, gosh, one thing I found out from being a delegate and organizer here is that, I love to compete. I love the competitive space. I love making friends. But there's people that just want to hang out and they don't want to necessarily compete. They want to get together and they just want to have fun. They want to maybe do some solves. If they're official, fine. If they're not official, who cares? They don't care if they're in a database. Can they do the Ready Cube or the FTO or one-handed 4x4? There's people that want to do that and just kind of get together and have fun and do that. And of course, it's more the kids. We're trying to pry those kids out of the basement, away from the screens, and get them more into a friendly cubing environment. So there is a vast gap of there's a black hole between competitions and the person who picks up the cube at the same time. We always say, oh, you've just solved the cube, you can come to a competition. And they go, wait a minute, I'm not good enough. I don't want to do it under stress. I'm not going to win. Why should I pay the same amount as the top cuber? So I want to, here in my area, and maybe we could do something regionally or nationwide, is maybe create cubing leagues in schools, different regions, and have schools compete against each other in a friendly format, and entice those cubing meetups. How do we entice organizers to have more meetups? How do we entice people to just come, if you don't want to spend $30 at a competition, how about spending $5 to to solve your 4x4 one-handed in a very friendly, unofficial environment, that kind of thing. So we need to get better at that as well. And what that will do is it'll sort of bridge that gap between someone who picked up the cube for the very first time into coming to a competition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's helpful. To zoom out even more, I think most of what we're talking about affects kind of a 2-year time horizon, maybe 3. Like, these are things that are short near term. We're coming up on 25 years of the WCA.
Yes.
Do you or the board have an inkling of the 50-year hope? That's wildly in the future. There's a lot that'll change between now and then. But is there a strategic vision or an unstrategic pie in the sky? Wouldn't it be awesome if... Is there something like that where this is where we want cubing to be, 28, 29, 30 years from now? Real quick, wherever you're listening to this, if you could like the video or give it a 5-star rating on the platform you're listening on, that helps spread the show to more cubers.
Boy, I don't know if I could speak 30 years from now. I hope I'm solving a cube 30 years from now. That'd be great. Maybe I'll get a bionic implant and then become world champion at age 90, that kind of thing. I could kind of talk about what I'm thinking about 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. 10 years is probably the farthest I'd probably want to look out to, but I would say if I were doing something 10 years from now, I want to be in every country. How can solving a cube bring peace to the world? There's too much fighting in the world. So can we bring in cubes to North Korea? Can we have North Korea and South Korea kids solving cubes together? 10 years, I would like to see real movement toward being in the Olympics. I think that's doable. There are sports that are sort of brought in from a spectator friendliness, and the Olympics tries that out. There's no reason the Rubik's Cube built in Erno Rubik's garage in 1974. There's no reason that should not be in the Olympics. If I'm coming back toward the present, if I'm thinking 5 years from now, I would like to see the top cubers maybe go on a tour, or like the PGA, that kind of thing. That they travel to different competitions, they compete. I would like to see a livable wage from these kids, not just your random prize money, not just stuff they're doing on the side. I know Dylan Miller does a lot of coaching. I know Timon does a lot of coaching. Carter Kakala does a lot of coaching. There's Cubing GG that has that platform. But I want to see real prize money to create perhaps a livable wage with these folks. Look at, I'm old enough to remember when baseball and football almost was not a livable wage sport. I remember when I was much younger that NFL referees it was like $200 a game, everybody was a volunteer, and now they're paid $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, and it's a full-time, year-round position. And you've seen the NFL grow. Why can't cubing kind of do that? I would love to see delegates and organizers get money from cubing. What does that look like? Of course, we have to bring in more sponsorship, and $100 to me in Kansas is different than $100 U.S. to someone in Mozambique or India or Nepal, that kind of thing. So we kind of have to think about that. But it's about bringing in more money and having a livable wage. If I'm coming even closer, what leads to that? Let's say 2 to 3 years from now. I think 3 years from now, we can become a recognized sport. We're doing some real things to become a recognized sport. Some people will say, oh, we don't want to be a recognized sport. Don't worry too much about your local competitions, your local grassroots 50, 80, 100-person competitions. These are things that affect your major championships, your state championships, your national championships, your invitationals, your World Cups, those kind of things. Those things that are on ESPN, on Twitch, on stream. But becoming a recognized sport, you have to interact with your international Olympic committees. You have to have athletes representation. So we're working on that. A Hall of Fame would go into that as well. Competitor safety. How can you be a recognized sport if people are getting assaulted at competitions? That kind of thing. And then if I back even closer to the present, how do I get to becoming a recognized sport? Well, I have to increase funding 25%, 50%. I have to make competitions better, higher quality. I have to make the WCA teams better, the competition announcement team, the quality team, integrity team, results team, regulations, all those. I have to increase and I have to increase training for delegates, make that a privilege that they have to get certified every year, and from that maybe give them a little bit of money. I have to build regions that are underdeveloped now, like Africa. I'm kind of focused on Africa. I have a training plan to how to make Africa, being in every country in Africa. And then that Hall of Fame, laying the groundwork for that Hall of Fame, recognizing those folks that did in the past. So, you talked about 30 years. I'm probably going to a max of 10 years, but
you answered 30 the question years, super well. That was really helpful. Like, if you want to take a shot at 30, that's fine. But that was great, laying out the roadmap like that.
I think 30. Let's say let's just make it. I mean, the Rubik's Cube is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. Let's continue that. Let's be good stewards of what what Erno Rubik created in his garage 52 years ago. And I want to see how we can use Rubik's Cubes to help folks recover from medical procedures. For example, dementia, Alzheimer's. Can solving a cube blindfolded and memorizing those letter pairs, can that help in the medical industry? Maybe that's something could be past 10 years. So I'm thinking about all this stuff.
Yeah. There's a couple of things you said in that list. The one that jumped out to me was getting competitors a livable wage. Could be done by the WCA and could also be done by an outside party or mix of outside parties. So like right now, there are a small handful of top competitors who make cubing nearly their full-time pursuit through some mixture of coaching / educational products, whether one-to-one or one-to-many, through brand sponsorships from retailers as well as manufacturers, and occasionally a brand that isn't connected to cubing at all. When you said that, are you envisioning a future where the WCA is leading the charge on that? Or are you and the board okay with a timeline where organizations other than the WCA are providing those like competitor tours or paying top competitors or that sort of thing?
I think from my perspective, again, I don't know if I've spent a whole lot of time figuring out the implementation plan for this, but
yeah, that's fine.
First of all, in our bylaws, the WCA is the global speed cubing authority, so we want to lead the charge on this stuff. So when I say livable wage, it would be, is it the WCA paying them? I mean, think of when I was a kid. I'll pick on another sport. Golf had the entire tournament, 4-day tournament, would make $100,000, and that's 150 golfers for 4 days, and the champion took a half of that kind of thing. So most of the golfers only made a few $100. They might have gotten their expenses covered to just travel and eat and then sit and then go to the hotel. Nowadays, your your average golfer can make millions of dollars, and they are paid by sponsorships and they are paid by the PGA. I'm not saying I want to follow the PGA model. I'm just sort of thinking of stuff that happened when I was a kid back in the 70s to now.
Yeah.
And can the WCA do that? Yes. There's no difference between the PGA and the WCA when it comes to, just, where they were back in the beginning versus now, where we could aspire to be. So when you said folks are making money, but yeah, that's what people did back in the day when there wasn't much money in their sport. They would have to go to get second jobs. They would have to coach. They would have to be, if we're picking on golf, it'd be like a club professional or get a second job as a, security guard or something like that to help feed their family. And then during the season, they would go play golf and then hopefully make enough to feed their family. I would like more money to come from the WCA prize money to incentivize. I don't want just the top three. Maybe everybody who makes the finals gets, $1,000. I don't know what that would look like, but it requires a lot of relationship building with sponsors and understanding what they would like in return from that. But I think it can be done. It really can be done. If it can be done in other sports, I mean, look at all the sports you see on ESPN. Just all the crazy stuff. I see tons of sports. There's axe throwing. There's darts. There's cornhole. There's all the. Gosh, I watched kickball the other day. I'm sure there's some money in that as well. And look, if you see all those sports on TV, if you look around, don't just watch the sport. Look around. There are sponsors. Sponsors all around. Come to a WCA competition. Show me your sponsors. We're really bad about having sponsors at competitions. We just don't spend that time doing that. We need to get better at doing that. I'd rather have us build a sponsor relationship from the top and flow it down as opposed to every organizer, in Texas and Kansas getting their own sponsors. Maybe we can have Microsoft fund competitions around the U.S. I think it's probably a lot easier than everybody doing their own thing.
Okay, so you used a phrase, the global authority in speed cubing. Is that it?
That's in our bylaws. That's in our bylaws.
That's a really helpful phrase to know is in the bylaws. So you've mentioned a few concepts like local competitor meetups, like getting cubing into schools as a school program. The way that, like, I'm assuming you're thinking about like how chess is a constant thing in schools. You've mentioned like the Olympic Committee. Some of these things, like making cubing a recognized sport, clearly fall under this idea of the global authority. But for something like schools or for something like local meetups, that direct link seems less strong to me. Are those areas where you think there's room for a partnership or somebody who is not the WCA to spearhead those efforts? Or are those things where in the ideal future, the WCA is also helping run local meetups and WCA is responsible for cubing's reach into schools and such?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I appreciate you sort of deep diving on that. Clearly getting into a school here in Kansas is going to be very different than getting into a school in Mongolia. Right? I don't know who to talk to in Mongolia. I can go down to the corner and I know, I can speak the language. So the process is going to be very different. The jurisdictions are very different. The national laws are very different. I'm learning about how laws in Poland and India is very different than California. And even when creating contracts, laws between New York and California can be very different. So it's probably more about creating those local partnerships. We have a concept called the regional organization. And so a number of countries have regional organizations. Here in the United States, we have Cubing USA. In Canada, they have Speed Cubing Canada. In the UK, they have UK Cubing Authority, UKCA. I don't know what the A is. Association, might be association. And then Australia, they have speed cubing in Australia. New Zealand, South Africa, that kind of thing. These are the ones that I've dealt with. Poland. So we can reach out to the local authorities there, to the local regional organization, and say, can you help us get into the schools or universities or other centers there? And that we can incentivize the regional organizations to do that for the WCA. We are moving, this is another long-term picture, we are trying to move to what's called a federated model, where like with FIFA or FIDE, so FIFA soccer.
I was going to ask about this, yeah.
Yeah, so where the regional organizations would have a vote in the say of the WCA, and it's either in partnership with voting with the delegates or changing the vote with the delegates. There's some issues we need to work through there, but we want to work to a more of a federated model to if we're incentivizing speed cubing India to get into the schools, we want to help them get a vote in helping the WCA get better. So when you hear federated model, that's kind of one of the things we're moving toward.
Yeah, I would be very excited if we saw that come to like something a little bit more practical. Like that model is really exciting to me because it gives people who know their geographies and cultures a lot more room to go, but it still keeps a cohesive global authority, which is where you guys want to sit. You mentioned cubing in the Olympics. I know there's a whole committee that is or was dedicated to this, but could you lay out all the crazy things that have to happen before that goes on? Because I think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, we should get cubing in the Olympics, as if you can just fill out a form and have it happen in the next one. Like, what's in the way from that being on TV and competitors going to wherever the next one is?
Yeah. So, being a recognized sport really sort of helps that. But to being recognized sport and being in the Olympics, you have to do a number of things. And I've kind of touched on them a little earlier. One is competitor safety. That's an active initiative we started in April. We're partnering with a company in the UK called the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, and we are actively working with them now on how to make our competition safer and have better reporting for incidents. It doesn't say we're going to be able to prevent. We can't prevent everything at every competition.
Yes.
Another thing is anti-doping. I don't know kind of what that looks like, and I've had discussions on how would we implement anti-doping. Mm-hmm. Here's a basic idea. We implement it at the World Championship or a few in our odd years, our World Championship, and then our even years, a couple of major championships. We subject the top, the podium or the finalists at a number of events randomly, take a third or the half, put their names in a hat, and maybe say you're subject to a doping test. What does that look like? Is it peeing in a cup? How do you make a 10-year-old pee in a cup? That kind of thing. But there are sports that do that right now. I do know that skateboarding and esports. I know skateboarding does it. I don't know about esports so much, the games, but skateboarding does have anti-doping. So they're team competitors, which are about the same age group as ours. They if they make podium, they may have to go take a drug test. Another thing, excuse me, is athletes' representation. So we want to make sure that if something major happens, that the athletes are represented, that they have a voice. So right now they don't really have a voice. I don't mean that negatively, but
Yeah, it's just like, who do you talk to? How do I know that this YouTube video I made actually got heard?
Yes. Or, somebody posted a video, and then somebody found that the video had a potential illegal move, and they reported that video to a committee. A committee investigated the person who posted the video, and then said your solve is DNF'd. Who is the voice for that competitor?
Drew Brad's Pyraminx world record. Drew Brad's, that happened. So sad.
Brad, that's it. That's exactly, yeah. And then Clock at Worlds, same thing. The Miss Scramble was found by a posted YouTube video. But yeah, Drew Brad's is another one. Who represents those competitors after the fact? So we're actively looking at a group to talk to top cubers, and then maybe have other represented groups, demographics like girls, seniors, maybe folks with challenges, disabilities, special needs, that kind of thing. And how are they represented in the WCA? So that needs to happen as well. And then we have to get in the Olympics, we have to get sponsored by our national Olympic committees. And from what I understand, it's about 60 countries, and so the U.S. speed cubing folks need to be represented by the U.S. Olympic Committee. Poland needs to be represented by the Poland. So we need 60 of those, I think. And then the Olympics would say, okay, or you might be a recognized sport from that. There's a lot of work ahead, but those are the main things, the different areas, and we're actively work on every part.
There's something that you talked about earlier that makes a lot more sense to me now. So I asked the question about, is the WCA trying to grow elite competition versus grassroots? And your response was basically a list of ways you're tightening up the mid-level of grassroots competition. Like the hunt, you're trying to trim in the caboose competition, in the camping trip competition, you're trying to get delegate training in place. You're trying to get competitor safety in place. You listed off a whole bunch of housekeeping, what seemed like housekeeping admin practical improvements to normal competitions. But from what you just articulated, it's like, if we want any kind of legitimate major competitions to happen, everything from the bottom up has to become solid, systematized, and legitimate enough to the point where on an international stage, with 60-plus committees all at the same time presenting, we are all saying, we run our competitions this way, here's how we do it, why we do it this way, we are legitimate, we are safe. The whole world agrees, will you accept us into this legitimate major thing? So that makes a lot more sense to me, because it's like, oh, if we want some sort of Olympic level thing, we want some sort of international federated competition thing, there's a bazillion little housekeeping things that have to line up down here that seem like frustrating mundane work until you realize all of it is necessary to actually build the foundation for something bigger.
Absolutely. You just hit the nail on the head, and I couldn't have said it any better. I've been talking about this so much that you just sort of summarized what I've been talking about for months. So I'm really glad you did that. At the same time, though, as we're cleaning up the caboose competitions and the boat competitions, we don't want to alienate folks that just want to get together and just solve a dang cube.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I have a cube right here. Look behind me. I just want to go solve a cube. In fact, like I said, when I'm leaving here, I'm going to go solve cubes with kids and their parents and maybe some older folks at a library across town. We just want to get together and solve a cube. We don't want to alienate everybody. But when you walk in with your parents at your first competition, you want to walk in and just say, wow, I have not only found my people, but this is an amazing environment. And I want to give something for the parents to do while the kids are off solving for 8 hours. What do the parents do? Is there a coffee bar for them that we can give them? Is there some premium picture service that we can perhaps give their kid? I don't know, $10 for a framed photo of your kid. I want those kids to walk in and have this great competitor experience. When I walked into my first official competition, I was 50 years old, and I said, I can do better than this. I'm not knocking that competition or who ran it, but I've talked to all the people. I'm like, you do know that some things could have been done better. And yes. Are all competitions like this? Yes, a lot of them are. I plan to do better. So I try to make my competitions funny, exciting, inviting. I try to, stuff like when you're yelling for judges, you don't just say, we need judges. Okay, you could do that all day and you're not going to get anybody. But if I go to a parent and say, look, I'm trying to get you parents out on the road a little early, and I know you want to hit your favorite restaurant, and I know you're trying to find a steakhouse 5 minutes down the road. How about if we find more volunteers, and maybe if everybody volunteers, we can get on the road a little earlier. Hey, we're 3 minutes earlier now. Can we be 5 minutes earlier next time? Can we be 10 minutes earlier? And then it becomes a game for everybody. I want that to be inviting for everybody.
Mm-hmm. So some of what you just said, you've talked about bringing money in via top-down partnerships. You may want to look into some of the ways that youth sports and Little League baseball monetizes, because there are components of like a lot of like youth soccer, youth flag football, youth baseball, like not the MLB, but the community-driven ones have several different monetization structures as far as how do you get local sponsors? How do you, like you said, pictures? How do you sell pictures, trophies, that sort of thing at local events so that you can drive that economy? Disconnected thought.
Yeah.
But made me think of it.
I just took a note too, so I'm learning here too.
There you go. We're bumping up against the end of time here. There's a lot of things I could ask. Are there any things that you would love to mention or talk about that I haven't asked about?
I did kind of want to ask, maybe, how's FTO going in your area, and how's the clock response going in your area? I'm always willing to answer those questions. I don't avoid those questions.
I would. Okay, so, well, before I ask those, how involved were you in the removal of clock, and how involved were you in the removal of FTO? Like you said, I report to the board and I do what they say, but you advise the board. So were you whispering in their ear, hey, we need FTO, or hey, we should get rid of clock? Neither one of those? Like, how involved were you? And then you can give the position and such, for sure.
Yeah. I felt like this wouldn't be a sort of a complete podcast until we talked about some of the elephants in the room. And I'm open to the discussions. Some people may not like the answers, but at least I'm very open, and I tell people to reach out to me anytime. I'm willing to have those conversations. I've been called some tough words, tough names. I'm a big boy. I can take it. I'll talk about FTO, the simple one first. When I became the employee, there was a working group I met with. So I meet with everybody. I meet with all the senior delegates from around the world. There's 7 of those. The team leads, team and committee leads, there was 12 of those. And then there's working groups, there were 4 of those. And then there were other important folks that I wanted to just meet that were working on particular projects. So I had, I think, 23 separate meetings. And I have 20 plus meetings with those folks every single quarter. I'm in my Q3 meeting cycle right now. So I meet with everybody. And in one of those working group meetings, I said, they were talking about adding events. I said, okay, great. I'm looking at your report, and I'm seeing a lot of great ideas. So how do we add something popular? I don't know, what's the most popular event? How about FTO? And they said, well, we're not planning on recommending adding events. I said, what do you mean? I mean, we
were just talking about it. Yeah.
We were just talking about it. Yeah. So I said, wait a minute. You're going to do all this stuff, but not really recommend adding specific stuff? No, that's up to other people to do that. So I started asking around, how do we add? Because SCUBE was the last event added, and that was in 2013. It went official in January 2014. There's very few people around now that were involved then. So I reached out to them. I said, how did you guys add SCUBE? I reached out to the previous board members, and I reached out to Lucas Guerin and Sarah Strong, who were on regulations at that time. And I said, how'd you guys add SCUBE? And it turned out it was a very simple process, but we've completely forgotten about the process. So I just started talking about, like, instead of just talking about the process, let's think about this. And it just started adding momentum.
This is what we were talking about at the beginning, where you were like, committees are doing things and they all need to talk to each other. And I show up and I'm like, well, can we do something? Like, can I listen to you and we make something happen? Like, this is a great example of that.
Yeah. So I always have the now what mentality of, thanks for the report. Thanks for this long report that you just gave me. Appreciate it. You guys spent months. Now what? What do we do with this? I don't know. We gave you the report. It's up to you. So I always try to make stuff actionable. And so that's kind of how it started, we just started talking about FTO, and then it sort of gained momentum, and then the board picked it up and then decided to vote and add that. It was a fairly easy vote because it's so popular. It's like on our most popular unofficial event website partner. We call them Cubing Contest. They're not an official partner. We have a lot of different third-party websites that we use. Cubing Contest, shout out to them. Turns out that FTO was at, 80% of their competitions. So that was sort of an easy one. Okay, I'll turn it over to Clock. So we'll make sure we talk about that. And so Clock has been talked about for a number of years. And you talked about how slow things happen in the WCA. This just sort of gained momentum over the years. And the board changes all the time, and everybody comes in with these new, fresh ideas, and they try to do stuff, and then so Clock has been talked about for a while, and it just sort of gained momentum with this particular board. I won't talk necessarily about their decision. First of all, I support them. I work with them every day. They're great folks. They are hardworking individuals that are elected, so please do not yell at your board because they. But anyway, I will say that from my perspective, Clock is one of the tougher events to organize and delegate at competitions. I have more errors from Clock than I do from any other event, including blind. So anything blind, how many clocks end up back at the scramble area that you look at the scorecard and it says, they got a 15.8 and one side isn't solved, or they're all solved to 3, 6, or 9, that kind of thing. That kind of thing. So Clock has always been problematic for me. I'm not a Clock hater.
Sure.
And I truly understand why people are so passionate about Clock. There's a couple of communities that are just built around Clock, and they just love Clock. And I have deep respect for their emotions on this. But just from my perspective, we're trying to clean up a little bit, trying to hone the WCA, make it tighter organization as we look toward increasing funding, increasing spectator friendliness. I watched Clock at NAC from a spectator friendliness perspective. And I went, because I'm usually the delegate in behind. And I sat out front during finals and watched it, and I realized, you can't tell when a clock is solved. Yes, people say, who cares? I go, but if I'm on ESPN, if I'm on Twitch, if I'm on some paid platform, that can be important to some folks. And then there's you got to turn it over to look, and that kind of thing. And if the competitor touches it before then, is that a problem? That kind of thing. So there was a statement about why the board said something about Clock, and they talked about spectator friendliness, the problems with scrambling. That is the sort of statement that they came together and agreed upon.
Sure.
Now,
yes.
Everybody comes with their opinions, but they sort of agree on the statement. And I think some folks are having a hard time with that, like feeling that everybody has to agree on the reasons why. And if you looked at it like the Supreme Court, if you read a Supreme Court decision, the U.S. Supreme Court, you would say that they agreed or disagreed, but then other people gave the reasons why, and there could be individual reasons. So I gave my specific reasons as a delegate.
Right.
If you ask me my percentage, I would say I'm like 55-45 for removal. If you wanted to keep it, fine. If not, fine. That kind of thing. I have not had much hate locally, but I know there's other sections that are big on it. So I want to make sure we sort of talked about that. Everybody kind of says, "Oh, the board is the worst." No, they're not. No, you elected them. They're great people. They made a tough decision, and I consulted on that decision. And so, I do understand that people don't care about the good things you do every day. They care about that one thing that they're passionate about.
100%.
And they're going to call you the worst people ever. Yeah. So.
If you're enjoying this podcast, could you just share it with another Cuber who you think would like it? These conversations are really long and really technical, so algorithms don't do a great job of spreading them to everybody. But I'm sure that there are other Cubers who would really enjoy this stuff, and the best way for them to find out about it is for you, the audience, to share it with your friends. It's so tricky because, I could devil's advocate so hard and be like, everything you just said about spectator friendliness is literally backwards. Like, the flip adds to the suspense. If you have an overhead cam, it's even more spectator friendly online. Or we have procedures to run the event well, and blah, blah, blah. But the way you just summed it up makes a lot of sense. It's like a totally split decision. All these people in all these committees all had different incentives and different reasoning that they would individually articulate as to why these reasons are compelling to them. The statement that we see as a general cubing population was written by a group, so there's a lot that is not in it that is context that's necessary to understand why you reached that decision. And you're making it not to disregard the work or the effort that this community has put into their event, but it's you're thinking about so many factors outside of that, and there's a group who cares so deeply about a thing, and when they lose it, it's heartbreaking, but you're have so many other things on your mind. It's such a complex thing, and I don't know. That's a very helpful encapsulation.
If it was my favorite event, I would be very, very passionate. It's not my favorite event. Like I said, I'm not a clock hater. I solve it from time to time. It's not one of the events I sign up for normally. But look, here's the interesting thing about this podcast. There's people who are going to listen to this entire podcast and not listen to adding funding, spectator friendliness, or Hall of Fame, or being in the Olympics.
Or just the sheer amount of meetings you sit through and understanding people you do to make stuff happen.
Yeah, they're going to hear the one thing that they go, "Oh, this is about clock," and I get that. I've had a couple of discussions, and they pull out the one thing that they disagree with and post that, but they don't post all the other. I'm like, do you understand? I'm trying to double the amount of funding in the WCA here in the next couple of years, and I. Does that matter to you? Would you like better prize money? But you took away my event. I get it. Our demographic is 12 to 16-year-olds who are super passionate about it. They're doing hundreds and thousands of solves to get this. So I get it. So
yeah, it's so hard. There's
I just want to
two
make sure we
things
sort
on
of.
that. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. It was in my notes. It didn't fit neatly into any specific part of the discussion, so I'm glad we talked about it. There's two things in what you just said. One is you were don't people care about the funding and the growth? I think what happens is each Cuber individually wants maximum, what I would call, validation. And there's a spectrum where Cubers feel validated in their niche group of friends. Like a clocker feels validated among the clock people. But then you go tell a stranger or a friend at school about it, and they're lame, weirdo, nerd person. And somebody would be like, oh, I want more validation from this group of people. And to do that, cubing needs to be a real sport with streams they can look at and sponsors and actually be getting paid money. And they start listing things where cubing would move from grassroots to legitimate sport. And as cubing goes this way, they feel more validated. But there's a tipping point where as cubing moves toward a legitimate sport, you start to lose the validation from your local community. And there's a subset of people where they individually feel the most validated by their group of individuals. And in your pursuit of growing cubing for everybody, a few people start to go, wait, I lost my own validation. And it's really tough because you're trying to balance how do we do this for as many people as possible, and inevitably people will be upset. It's like the other thing is just I'm really glad that we have someone in the WCA whose job it is just to get stuff done at the cost of someone on some committee being unhappy, someone in Cubic's friends posting hate comments, someone at competition saying negative things about you. But I am really, really glad that we have somebody who's taking initiative, who's making decisions, who's saying, okay, now what? What's the action step? And is trying to do stuff. So I don't know. The hate will happen. The negative will happen. The people who have past attachments will happen. But thank you for what you do. And please keep acting decisively because it's the only way motion will happen within cubing.
I have gone from, I spent a month or so thinking, oh my God, I now have my perfect dream job. Like I couldn't have thought of a better job. And now I just wake up and roll up my sleeves and say, let's get to work. And like today, I'm in calls. There's a troublesome region that I'm really trying to fix. I'm in meetings every day. And I see the progress each and every day. And I have many people thank me after those discussions and results. Look, I'll take the one or two bad comments. I had one leader call me a micromanager after a couple of weeks on the job. I'm like, but wait a minute, I'm literally trying to push responsibility down to you.
Volunteer committees discover corporate structure for the first time.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to instill rules. I'm just trying to help you remove barriers, those blockers. Is there the team over there that you could talk to better? So yeah, I've spent 20 years in the military, so I've been yelled at by a lot of people, so I'm used to this. So look, I appreciate everybody's passion, and I just love the way you sort of summarize things. I really hadn't thought about that. Thank you for summarizing those points. I should have you come to some things and be my hype man. I would love that. Yeah.
Well, you have my contact.
Okay.
Well, if that's our closing topic, I end every discussion with the same question: what aspect of cubing gives you the deepest joy? And this can be anything. Like I've had people say, the friends I've made, I've had people say fast times. I've had people like Lars Vandenberg say, I love discovering a new aspect of cubing theory. Like anything's on the table. What to you brings you the deepest joy?
Can I mention two real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
One is, I'm not picking on my childhood. I didn't have a great childhood. My years from say 10 to 14, 15 were not really good. I just don't have a lot of really good memories. I have some good friends. I have some good memories. I just don't have a lot of great. It's a lot more bad memories than good memories. So when I see these kids at competitions and I see them happy, I see these kids happy, that makes me happy. So I go up and talk to the parents, and they talk about how supportive they are of their kids. And then I talk to the kids and say, how'd your competition go? And I got a PR, and it's their first competition. It's their PR, 38 seconds. And I just high-five them. They are so happy. And then they come up to me at the end of the day and say, thank you for putting this on. And they have 5 hours to drive home. And I can tell the parents are just, they're not looking forward to the drive. But the kid just had this wonderful time.
Yes.
That makes it, if I could have been that kid, I try to envision myself as that kid, taking my not so great memories at that age and inserting the good. If I'd had those good memories, I feel like those years for me have been a little different. So I think about that all the time. Secondly, there are a number of times, what brings me the happiness, of course I love doing the executive director stuff. I just absolutely love it's my dream job, and I hope to do it until I retire. When I got my multi-blind state record The Kansas State record. It was 4 out of 4, 37 minutes and 2 seconds. Not not great, but it was the state record, and I got first in the competition. I beat a guy who got 8 out of 13 cubes, and by the weird scoring system, 4 out of 4 beats 8 out of 13.
That beats it.
Yeah. I actually, when I realized I got first place, I actually collapsed in tears on the ground, wearing my blindfold. And I'm 56 years old at that time. And there's been a number of times so I worked really hard during COVID to beat the senior North American record for square one, single, and average, held by the great Mike Huey from Ohio, or Indiana, I think. I worked all of COVID to beat those records, and when I got those, I actually did some laps around the room. I was just so happy. When I achieve my goals at a competition, I am so happy. I'm like a little kid again. So those are the two things. Watching the kids when they achieve their goals and seeing how happy they are, and the parents supporting those kids, and then me doing that. But yes, having my dream job is just, I love it. I'm honored that I get to do this for the WCA each and every day.
Very good. Yeah. I hung out with Tingman for like 2 weeks earlier this year. So he did Tingman Live. He went to all of the, like a few places in America and put on these shows, and I flew around with him and like was a stagehand and helped with props and everything. And that joy that you said on the 10-year-old's face, like, dude, there were these kids and their family, like, that hadn't been to a competition yet, but knew who Tingman was. Tingman was the only exposure to cubing they had. Like, there were these families that drove, like, 10 hours, had never been to a competition, were, like, sitting outside the thing, like, 3 hours early, and this little 10-year-old is, like, so excited, like, you have more Rubik's Cubes? Can I try your cubes? Like, just like lights up their whole world. And the parents have this moment of like, oh, they do get excited. There are things this kid connects with. And dude, after everything I shared, after all of the, oh yeah, there you go. After all of the, I managed committee this, I do executive that. Like hearing your heart of just, look, I want to give 10 to 15-year-olds a thing they're excited about, like.
I want them to be excited and they come back.
That's good.
So I'm on the board. I've been elected to the board. I was at Worlds, and we had a boardroom on this far away from the floor. So we're up there, and I'm wearing this. I'm probably wearing a tie that day. I get on the elevator, and there's Tingman and his daughter.
Nice.
What's her name?
Olor is what she goes by.
Olor. Yeah. Olor and Tingman were on the elevator. They knew who I was, I knew who they were, and I fanboyed. I said, they didn't ask to take a picture with me. I asked to take a picture with them. I get off the elevator, thank you very much. And I walk outside of the little door, so I was on the side of this glass wall, and the rest of the board and I were meeting for dinner or something, we were going, and I go, there's Tingman right there. So we were all like, oh my gosh, it's Tingman. And they were doing a little podcast recording, whatever. And I don't know if they said they met somebody from the board. Probably not. But I fanboy just as much. And I could tell you were fanboying a little bit when you were hanging out with Tingman. You were doing 10 tasks. That was a video where you did 10 tasks. Or
that was a fun day. We flew into Houston. We flew into Houston a day early before the show. And we were like, what can we do in Houston? And he came up with a whole YouTube script of like, we're going to have this adventure in Houston. And he like vlogged the day. I'd never done vlogging. I'm so awkward when I'm not like in a comfortable behind a desk situation. But we just had fun. Dude, the worst part of that day, he was like, I want to try American drive-through food. And I was like, dude, we got to do Chick-fil-A. He's like, let's do Chick-fil-A. And then we're walking out of Target, and I'm like, Tingman, it's Sunday. I just realized it's Sunday. I am so sorry. We can't go to Chick-fil-A.
I remember that.
But that was really
he didn't realize. Yeah. Did you go to Buc-ee's? You went to Buc-ee's or something too?
Dude, Tingman loved Buc-ee's. We went to Buc-ee's on the morning after we landed, and the morning we were going to fly out, he was like, I'm just going to get up an hour earlier and go to Buc-ee's again because it was so great.
Buc-ee's is a little much for me. It's too busy for me. But look, it just shows I watch those videos when I'm working. I'm watching those videos. And I'm a fan as well. I love cubing. So, yeah.